I used to think that PTSD came from the war. I associated war veterans with PTSD. I didn't know that everybody was susceptible to PTSD until I realized I have PTSD. Um, this discussion that seems to be global now about anxiety is something that has gotten my attention. And I just wanted to talk about that for a minute because um, I think that of course, PTSD is something that we uh, have from, I don't know, some of us from the war, some of us from childhood, some of us from, a traumatic event that occurred in our lives. And then we try to get past that. We go on with our life and we really don't recognize those triggers that pull us back to that traumatic event or events. Understanding your triggers is really important. But to talk about anxiety for just a minute, and maybe this is anxiety without PTSD, but I feel like anytime that you have anxiety, it is because you're trying to either be somebody that you're not, or you're always living in the past, or you're always living in the future, or maybe you have people in your life that keep you feeling this way, keep you trapped in that anxiety. And, some of those people could knowingly do that. Maybe they feel like they have control over you. So if they push those buttons, they weaken you and they keep you trapped in this anxiety. Another thing, I think this is probably the most important, is that I feel like we're trying to please other people. And if you are not truly who you are and you're trying to make somebody else happy, then you're really not living your true life. This is not your destiny. You're not supposed to feel anxiety. I think that PTSD is treatable. I think that I think that once you align with the reasons or the people or the causes of the anxiety, once you tap into those and you can recognize them, admit them, and I say admit them because sometimes the worst possible anxiety that we can have is caused by a relative, a loved one, a spouse, a child, I guess. I don't deal with some of those things, but I certainly feel like they can contribute to anxiety. Sometimes these things occur and they trigger our anxiety because the universe is ready for you to step up and take up for yourself. And I went through a particular incident for many, many years, probably the majority of my life. And I finally had to either choose the value of my life and the quality of my life over this person being a part of my life, because it just became obvious finally that this person wanted to keep me silent, under control, intimidated. They wanted to trigger my stress and anxiety. And once I cut this person out of my life, I was shaky. I was uncertain. I felt like I was now going to be walking a tightrope without a net. I had all these sorts of feelings about cutting the person out of my life because they had done a really good job at making me second guess myself, at making me second guess my intuition, causing me to feel insecure. And props to them. They did a really good job. This person happens to be a narcissist. If any of you out there have ever dealt with a narcissist, I feel for you. It is a horrible situation because you know you're going through it, but nobody else does because the narcissist is so good. They're just brilliant most of the time. And they're really good at making you look like an idiot and covering up their behavior because they have a public image. And they go to great lengths to protect this public image. So it is all the more reason why they try to keep you silent, intimidated. They want to, stay in control of your life because you might actually have something to tell that could really destroy their entire image. So to get back to the topic of anxiety, sometimes you just have to choose yourself over them, and you have to cut people out of your life. And I've had a lot of discussions with friends, and we agree that sometimes the person who harms you the most is a family member. Now, I also will say that the people who teach us the most in this lifetime are family members. So you can receive the most pain, but out of that pain becomes your greatest lessons and your greatest strengths. I've said this 1,000 times. We are not shaped by joy. We are shaped by pain. And a lot of people who have gone through pain have become empaths. Another reason for anxiety right there. So let me talk about that for just a second. A lot of the anxiety that people feel is once again, maybe caused by something that created a lot of pain in their lives. I have a client who was severely traumatized by her mom. She went through a lot of different types of abuse. I just, in fact, was texting with her today. And out of that pain and suffering, she has become an empath, and what I feel is a full-blown psychic medium because she's so in touch with sensitive issues. She's so aware. And because she suffered so much, she doesn't want anybody else to suffer in their lives ever. And she would go to great lengths to help people and to protect people. So she was created, I guess, and shaped by this pain, and it is now turning into a great gift for her. But being an empath can cause a great deal of anxiety, and this is why. Because an empath can feel what's going to happen. An empath can feel things on a global level. There have been times, I remember, it's been a few years, but one of the earthquakes that occurred in Japan in the last few years, before it happened, it triggered my anxiety as an empath. And oddly enough, after the earthquake had occurred, my anxiety sort of settled down because it was almost like my body was expecting the worst and expecting the trauma, and knowing that it could feel the collective pain of the earth, or this energy that comes from an earthquake, and my body reacted. And my hands will shake a little bit more. I sort of think that it's me. Sometimes I think that you know I am having a medical issue, or I search my mind and think, okay, is this PTSD? Is this what is this? And then something like this will happen, and I go, oh, okay, that's what it was. And oddly enough, like I said, once the burst of energy is released, I sort of feel a little bit more calm. It's almost like waiting for the other shoe to drop. And then once the shoe drops, you're like, oh, okay, there's the shoe. It dropped. It happened. There's nothing I can do about it. I have to completely detach now. I have to let it go. So there's so many things that can cause anxiety, but I would really like to stress to you today that you take a really good look at your own psychic ability, your own ability as an empath, an intuitive, and see if your anxiety is related to something that would have caused you pain, that might have shaped you and intensified your own intuition. I also encourage you to cut ties with anybody who makes you feel bad. I recently told a client about a show that came out on DirecTV. I think it was on HBO, but I don't remember. And it was the Defiant Ones. And it's the story of mainly Dr. Dre, Jimmy Iovine, a little bit of Eminem in there. And yes, it's about the history of these people and where they came from. It also talks about Snoop Dogg. It includes a lot of that history and their roots, where they started. But I didn't know that it was a whole series. I only saw one show, and it was the last one. And it's probably one of the best shows I've ever seen, ever, because of the free spirit and determination and will of, Eminem, Jimmy Iovine, and Dr. Dre. But these people, they never listened to anybody. They followed their intuition, and but one of the most important things about it was that Dr. Dre said, when he goes into a situation to work with somebody to produce them and to make the music, any situation he goes into, he said, if it feels good, if the music feels good, if the atmosphere feels good, and the people feel good, then basically I think what he said was something like, I'm all in, or something like that. I'm not quoting him. And then he said, if the person feels bad, if the situation feels bad, if the music doesn't feel right, if anything feels bad, I'm out. And I took that to mean that he just literally gets up and walks out, and that's it. They don't work together, they don't hear from him again, or whatever the situation. And that really speaks to his intuition. So I just wanted to reiterate that, just in case you have not seen the Defiant Ones. It's really worth the watch. I'm not a huge fan of rap. It's it's a little harsh, but the story that's there and the inspiration is moving, and it is just unbelievable. I mean, of course, we've already seen the outcome of a lot of the things that they've done, but it's really interesting to watch and listen. It's motivating. So anyway, I wanted to just stress that to you guys today that we can all maybe take a little advice from Dr. Dre. If something feels good, go with it. If it doesn't, remove it from your life and allow yourself to be free. Remember, this is your life to live. It's not somebody else's life. They don't get to have two lives. They don't get to have their own and yours. So let them deal with their lives and govern their own, make their own choices. But don't allow somebody to tell you what's best for you or what you're going to do or what you're allowed to do at any point in your life. As long as it doesn't hurt another person, you need to follow your own intuition. Always, always, always. And I'm hoping for you that this removes some of the anxiety that you may be feeling. And that's all for today. I just want to know if you guys are hearing me. If you have any comments, please add them where you can. Facebook me, text me, whatever. I appreciate you, and I hope to talk to you soon.